My husband is such a hopeless romantic. Out in public, he's the formidable CEO of a major corporation, but at home, he's nothing more than a big softie who loves to cuddle. Constantly clinging to me, asking for hugs and kisses, he's like a loyal puppy. I'm always trying to remind him to focus on his work, but he never takes it seriously. Sweetheart, you're my whole world, he'd say. The company was holding a major meeting today. Typically, rookies like us would be seated in the very back. But this time, a new seating rule was introduced. Everyone had to sit in alphabetical order. I couldn't help but stifle a laugh as I watched Zach, who was stuck in the last row. Serves him right for always sucking up to the bosses. Let's see how he does now, huh, Anna? Thanks to the new rule, I found myself seated in the first row, taking advantage of a colleague's coffee break. I quickly pulled out my phone to respond to some overdue messages. Messages had been flooding in nonstop, and the sender on the other end was clearly getting anxious. Baby, I swapped my seat. Now, I can be closer to you when I speak later. Why aren't you replying? Are you busy? Is your department overloaded again? I'll make sure to reprimand your boss and stand up for you, okay? I miss you. What do you want for dinner tonight? A string of texts popped up one after another. I hastily replied, got it. I'm not busy. And no need to scold my boss, he's innocent. Let's have your homemade pasta tonight. I had to answer all his messages quickly, or else he'd start pestering me until he got to the bottom of it. As soon as my colleague returned with her coffee, I put my phone away. Chatting with your husband again? You two are really sweet, she remarked with a grin. I just smiled without saying much. You know, I've never actually seen your husband before. What does he look like? The truth is, she had seen him. In fact, everyone in the company had. Right then, the door swung open, and a group of people walked in. Everyone stood up, applauding to welcome them. Leading the group was a man in a perfectly tailored suit. His features were sharp, his jawline defined, and his entire presence exuded the commanding aura of someone long accustomed to power. Isn't our boss just incredibly handsome? Someone behind me whispered. Absolutely. If the sky ever falls, we've got his face to hold it up, another voice added. Tomas, the rising star of the corporate world, not only managed a multi-billion-dollar company, but also looked like he could easily dominate the entertainment industry. It was no wonder so many people were smitten. Tomas looks especially dashing today, someone else murmured. Yeah. He's got such impeccable taste. Look how perfectly his tie matches his suit. I couldn't help but chuckle softly. Just this morning, Tomas had been complaining that his tie didn't match my outfit at all. He'd rummaged through the closet for ages, insisting on finding one that coordinated with my clothes. It took me a good half hour to convince him to drop it. Yes, Tomas is my secret husband. We've been married for a year now. Our wedding was held abroad, with only a handful of people in the know back home. Simply because we didn't want too much attention. Tomas had sulked about it for quite some time, wondering if it was because I was embarrassed by him. As we settled down, the meeting began. Tomas stood under the spotlight with a microphone in hand, addressing everyone. The room listened intently, though most were probably just admiring his looks. I want everyone to focus on efficiency. Let me reiterate. This company does not encourage overtime. When the clock strikes the end of your workday, leave and spend time with your families. As he spoke, he threw a meaningful glance in my direction, clearly hinting at how I'd stayed late last week for work. Unfortunately, my department head completely misinterpreted his message and decided to keep us all back for a meeting that very evening. Everyone heard what Mr. Tomas said, right? We must respond to his call and improve our efficiency. Does anyone have any good suggestions to share? I exchanged a resigned glance with my colleague, Lily. Let's hear everyone's ideas on how to boost efficiency. We'll compile them together, Zach, our department head, announced. Zach was the king of brown-nosing. He had a habit of collecting our best ideas, only to send them to the boss late at night, pretending they were the result of his own hard work. "Anna, let's hear from you." Zach suddenly called on me, snapping me out of my thoughts. I looked up, confused. "I think Mr. Tomas meant that he wants us to leave work on time," I replied. Zach's brows furrowed as he glared at me. "This is why you're still a low-level employee, because you just don't understand what the leaders want." I almost laughed out loud. He really had the audacity to say I didn't understand my own husband's intentions. As the clock hit 6:30 p.m., my phone was blowing up with messages from the company's group chat. "Zach, Mr. Tomas just posted something in the main group chat." Panic flashed across his face as he grabbed his phone, only to find that Tomas had personally tagged him. "Why is your department still working overtime? Did you ignore what I said today?" Meanwhile, Tomas had sent me over 10 messages, growing increasingly impatient as I hadn't responded during the meeting. I could almost picture him fidgeting in frustration. Zach's face turned pale, and he quickly ordered us all to clock out. After swiping my card, I headed straight for the basement parking. As soon as the elevator doors opened, a car was already waiting for me. The moment I got in, I barely had time to fasten my seatbelt before Tomas pulled me into his arms. The scent of his cologne enveloped me in the quiet car, broken only by his slightly heavy breathing. Reluctantly letting go, he buckled my seatbelt himself. "Baby, I've been waiting for you forever." He started the car, and we made a quick stop at the supermarket to pick up groceries before heading home. Tomas didn't like having strangers in our space, so he insisted on handling all the grocery shopping and cooking himself. The housekeeper only came by twice a week to clean. Once we were home, I lounged on the couch, scrolling through my phone, while Tomas changed into an apron and started prepping the pasta sauce. He rolled up his sleeves, revealing well-defined forearms. When I glanced up, I met Tomas' gaze. "Why don't you come over here, baby? You'll get a better view from up close." At home, Tomas had a rule: I was never allowed to be too far from him. He needed me to be in his line of sight at all times. "Come here, baby," he called again. I walked over, and without a word, he pulled me close, trapping me between his chest and the kitchen counter. No reason. I just wanted a kiss. Tomas leaned down and planted a gentle kiss on my forehead. "Hurry up with dinner, I'm starving," I teased. "Don't worry, sweetheart. I won't let you go hungry," he replied, whispering softly in my ear as he continued preparing the ingredients. He relished these little moments of flirting while cooking. I was about to respond when suddenly, my phone rang. To my surprise, it was Zach calling. I instinctively glanced at Tomas, whose expression darkened immediately. "Put it on speaker," he said, his voice laced with a cold edge. "I'd love to hear what he has to say." I put Zach on speaker, and his voice came through the phone. "Anna, I've noticed you've been clocking out on time recently. Seems like you're quite efficient at work, huh? How about this, write me a report tonight and leave it on my desk before work tomorrow." "So now, clocking out on time has become a crime, huh?" Tomas' face darkened, and just as he was about to speak, Zach hung up abruptly. I wasn't sure whether to be relieved for Zach or pity him. "Well, you go ahead and finish cooking. I'll get started on that report," I said, trying to make a quick escape. But Tomas was faster. He grabbed me before I could slip away. "Forget the report. It's after hours now, and as the boss's wife, you don't need to answer to him." "I'll fire him tomorrow," Tomas said firmly. "Don't be like that," I protested. "Zach's not a bad guy. Sure, he was a bit bureaucratic, but he was competent. You need to be more rational, Tomas. It's important to manage talent." I tried to talk some sense into him, urging him not to get so caught up in being my doting husband that he neglected his responsibilities. Other CEOs were constantly flying around the globe, reviewing documents, planning for the company's future. But Tomas? The moment he clocked out, It was straight to the grocery store and then home to cook for me. Unless the company was literally on fire, he wouldn't even glance at his phone after hours. But I had to admit, his culinary skills were top-notch. The meat sauce he was simmering smelled divine. Tomas had mastered Italian cuisine, and he was always so thoughtful in preparing our meals. He even woke up early to make me breakfast every day. The next morning, I woke up to find breakfast already waiting for me: warmed milk, heart-shaped fried eggs, and sandwiches filled with my favorite cartoon-themed toppings, layered with fresh vegetables and meat. In contrast, Tomas' own breakfast was nothing but a simple cup of coffee. "Baby, are you still feeling unwell?" Tomas asked, his voice dripping with concern. "Do you want to take the day off? I can talk to HR and tell them you don't need to come in." "You better shut up," I muttered. If I was feeling sore, it was entirely his fault for what he did last night. How could he not realize that? After breakfast, we headed to work together, but as usual, he stopped a block away from the company, insisting I walk the rest of the way. He never let me leave without a goodbye kiss, which often turned into a full-on makeout session that made me run late. Today was no exception. Barely making it in time, I swiped my card just as Zach's sour face greeted me. "Is that report done?" "Let me take a look," he demanded. "Not yet." I was scrambling to come up with an excuse when a voice called out from behind me. "Zach, Mr. Tomas wants to see you upstairs." Zach's expression shifted instantly, his face turning from annoyance to a forced, obsequious smile. The person delivering the message was Tomas' assistant, the only one in the company who knew my true identity. Once they left, I returned to my desk while my colleagues continued gossiping about yesterday's meeting. "God, I couldn't stop laughing at Zach getting chewed out like that," one of them said. "Right? Our boss is amazing. Actually paying attention to the well-being of us low-level employees." Zach never imagined that the first time he'd get publicly called out by the boss would be for not letting people leave on time, another added. As I powered up my computer, I couldn't help but eavesdrop on their conversation. Suddenly, Lily, my desk neighbor, let out a whistle. "Looking good, Anna." I stared at her, confused. She handed me a mirror, and my eyes widened in horror. What the hell? When did Tomas leave a hickey on my neck again? And worse, I hadn't covered it up. How embarrassing. For I had just picked up my phone, ready to scold Tomas, but I was greeted with his messages instead. "Baby, I'm already in the office. Looks like it's getting colder today. Make sure to cover your legs with a blanket. Come nap in my office at lunch. It's too cold to rest on your desk." Tomas' meticulous reminders poured in one after another, leaving me with no room to get mad at him. Around noon, Zach returned to the office, looking pale and shaky. It was clear he'd been severely scolded. Tomas had a talent for sarcasm when angry. His words could cut someone to shreds. I went to the company cafeteria with Lily for lunch. The food didn't taste as good as it used to, probably a new chef, so I casually complained to Tomas about it. His response was immediate: "Then come to my office for lunch. After eating, you can take a nap here too." He even sent a cute kissing emoji. A grown man over 6 feet tall using such an adorable emoji, how could anyone resist that? Returning to the office, we were all taken by surprise. Though it was only early November and the weather had just turned chilly, the office was already warmed up with the heating on. "What's going on?" someone asked. "It's a new company policy," another colleague explained. "Now that it's getting colder, we'll have the air conditioning turned on for warmth during lunch breaks. And the break time has been extended by half an hour." Anyone could guess that this was Tomas doing. During lunch break, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. "Baby, are you sure you don't want to come up and rest? I can even warm the bed for you. Was the food not good today? I'll have the admin department handle it. What do you want for dinner? I'll make it up to you." I replied absent-mindedly, half engaged in our chat. Later in the afternoon, Just before the end of the workday, the office buzzed with new gossip. The admin department announced that the company is hiring new chefs, and we can vote on what dishes we want on the internet. They'll update the menu weekly based on our votes. "Oh my God, our boss is so considerate," someone exclaimed. Lily leaned on my shoulder with a sigh. "Seriously? Our boss is so thoughtful. I'm so envious of the boss's wife. Imagine being married to such a handsome and caring man." I nodded and agreed nonchalantly. Honestly, being with Tomas was the best thing that ever happened to me. Even now, I sometimes wake up in disbelief, wondering if I'm still dreaming. But then I see him beside me, and I realize it's all real. This perfect, one-in-a-million man is truly my husband. While we were chatting happily, the deputy general manager, Sarah, suddenly appeared. "Sarah, what brings you here?" Zach greeted her with his usual sycophantic smile. Sarah glanced at her watch and said softly, "I'll be going on a business trip with the boss, but we need someone else from the department to join us." "I understand," Zach said quickly. "I'll get everything prepared right away. Once the meeting is over, I can be ready to go." "No need." Sarah cut him off and turned her gaze to me. "Anna, please get ready. The flight is at 9:20 tomorrow morning. Don't be late." And with that, Sarah left, her efficient style leaving no room for questions. As soon as she was gone, Zach's expression darkened. He shot me a cold, disdainful look. "Well, since you have a trip tomorrow, you might as well head home early today to prepare." 5. When my colleagues found out I was going on a business trip, they were all envious. After all, traveling with the boss meant enjoying excellent perks. Personally, I wasn't particularly excited, perhaps it was because Tomas and I often traveled together for leisure. But this was the first time we'd go on a work trip together. When I got home, just as I expected, Tomas was in the walk-in closet, packing our luggage. After checking the weather forecast, he thoughtfully pulled out an extra jacket for me. "This trip won't involve much work, but it'll take quite a bit of time," he explained with a hint of exaggeration. "The thought of not seeing you for so long was unbearable, so I had no choice but to bring you along." He even threw me a smug look. "Am I your lucky charm or something?" I thought. Little did the people at the office know. The real reason Tomas brought me along on this trip was simply because he couldn't stand being away from me. The next morning, Tomas' assistant came to pick us up, and we arrived at the airport to find Sarah already waiting. When she saw Tomas and me standing together, her expression showed a flicker of surprise. I quickly explained that we had just run into each other at the airport entrance. Tomas, however, seemed entirely unconcerned, while Sarah's gaze held a mix of curiosity and a tinge of hostility. Yes, hostility. A woman's sixth sense never lies. The assistant had booked 4 first-class seats. As we were about to board, Sarah sidled up to me. "Never flown first class before, huh? Well, here's your chance," she said with a touch of condescension. Ahead of us, Tomas turned to glance at her, his expression hidden behind his sunglasses. I chuckled lightly. "Not really. I've flown first class before, when I traveled around the world with my husband." Though half his face was covered, Tomas couldn't hide the smile tugging at his lips. Sarah, on the other hand, shot me a sidelong glance and dryly commented, "How sweet, you and your husband are quite the pair." Once we boarded the plane, I was caught off guard. The assistant had seated Tomas and me together in the front, while Sarah and the assistant sat behind us. Just as I settled into my seat, Sarah came striding up. "Tomas and I need to discuss some work matters." "You can move to the back," she ordered. I frowned but didn't even have the chance to respond before Tomas pulled off his sunglasses with an annoyed expression. "Whatever it is, it can wait until after we land. Go back to your seat," he said coolly. Sarah didn't argue, but as she turned away, she shot me a look filled with meaning before strutting back to her seat in her high heels. I ended up dozing off on the flight. When I woke up, I realized I was not only covered with the airline's blanket but also with Tomas' jacket. Not wanting to draw attention, I quickly handed his jacket back before Sarah noticed. Tomas looked at me with a hint of grievance. "You owe me for this." Was he kidding? We were on a business trip, not at home. When we arrived at the hotel to check in, the receptionist handed us 4 room cards, all for rooms on the same floor. Sarah accepted the cards with a smile. "It's really a privilege to have Mr. Tomas with us this time. Otherwise, we'd never get to stay in such a nice hotel," she remarked. Tomas remained silent, maintaining his usual stern expression that made it seem like nothing pleased him. Yet, the moment we were alone, he was as clingy as ever. If I didn't know him so well, I might have thought he had a split personality. I gave a faint smile and stayed quiet, though I couldn't help but sense that Sarah's comment was indirectly aimed at me. Clearly, her intentions weren't as simple as just appreciating Tomas' generosity. After we checked in, the assistant suggested we rest and start working the next day. No sooner had I gotten to my room than Tomas sent me a text. "Baby, I miss you." Seeing his message, I couldn't help but laugh. "Come on, Tomas, do you think I don't know what you're up to?" I thought about brushing him off, but then he sent a picture of a small pink pouch. "Baby, your sleep mask accidentally ended up in my suitcase when I was packing. Do you want me to bring it to you, or will you come to get it yourself?" Clenching my teeth, I reluctantly walked over to Tomas' room. I had barely knocked twice before the door swung open, and a strong arm reached out to pull me inside. Just as the door was closing behind me, I caught a glimpse of Sarah's door opening across the hall. The surprise on her face was unmistakable. It's over. I don't think I'll be able to keep my identity hidden any longer. I barely had a few days of peace, and now it looks like it's all about to slip away." Tomas, however, didn't seem to care at all. As I was putting on my makeup, he massaged my shoulders and attempted to brainwash me. "We're married. Not sneaking around having an affair. Who cares if someone finds out?" he argued. "But what if she spreads it around? Then the whole company will know," I countered. I hated the idea of staying home all day with nothing to do, but whenever I thought about switching to a different company, Tomas would get overly concerned that I might be mistreated. However, working in his own company while keeping our relationship a secret meant that I could never freely join in on office gossip or casual conversations with my colleagues. "Don't worry. I'll have a word with her," Tomas reassured me while sitting next to me. His hands wandering again. I swatted him away immediately. This man would probably love nothing more than to announce our relationship to the whole world. There's no way he'd be this considerate. Forget it. I decided to wait and see if Sarah would confront me about it. But for the entire day, she didn't say a single word to me. I started to wonder if I had just imagined that look she gave me. On the 3rd day, Tomas had a meeting with some business partners, and his assistant accompanied him to a banquet. Meanwhile, Sarah and I took a taxi back to the hotel. As we were riding, Sarah suddenly turned to me. "Anna, how long have you been married to your husband?" "A little over a year, almost 2 years now," I replied. "That's the honeymoon phase, isn't it?" Sarah remarked with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Everyone says that there's always someone better out there," she continued. "But we should appreciate what we have, don't you think? I can't stand those who are married but still fool around." Her words carried a clear subtext, but I played along. "You're absolutely right. That's why I cherish my husband very much." "Good," she said with a faintly mocking tone. "Because if it's not yours to begin with, it's best not to fantasize about it. Sometimes, even if you get your hands on something, you might not be able to hold on to it." I smiled slightly and countered, "But, Sarah, do you think you could hold on to it?" I wasn't blind to her intentions. At my question, her smile faded, and she replied coldly. "Men don't just care about looks. Especially successful men, they value what their partner can bring to the table." You're still young, so don't waste your potential. When we arrived at the hotel, I watched her search for her room card, chuckling softly as I said, "Have you ever considered that Tomas might actually be my husband?" Though Tomas and I tried to keep our relationship under wraps. He never hid the fact that he was married. He always wore his wedding ring proudly. Sarah let out a disbelieving laugh, giving me a once-over. You're quite the dreamer. This business trip ended up stretching over 2 weeks. My role mainly consisted of handling trivial tasks, so it was no wonder Sarah had her suspicions about me. I couldn't help but smile to myself. Who's the real dreamer here? As if to prove her point, Sarah worked tirelessly over the next few days, frequently showcasing her accomplishments to Tomas. She was constantly trying to impress him, to the point where the assistant had to step in. "Miss Sarah, your work is highly valued, but there's no need to overexert yourself," the assistant gently advised. "Mr. Tomas enjoys his personal time. Please be mindful of that." I couldn't stop myself from laughing as I watched Sarah's expression turn sour. Honestly, despite her clear hostility towards me, she was basically helping out my husband's company. Clearly, she was deluding herself if she thought she could win over Tomas. After the project wrapped up, Tomas gave me a 3-day break to rest at home. However, seeing that Sarah was already back at the office working diligently, I felt a bit guilty about lounging around while I was supposed to be part of the team. I only lasted a day at home before I decided to return to work. But as soon as I stepped into the office, I couldn't shake the feeling that people were looking at me strangely. During lunch, Lily pulled me aside and whispered, "Did you piss off Sarah during your business trip? Yesterday, when you weren't here, she publicly criticized one of your previous reports in a meeting." I was taken aback by this sudden turn of events, but could only shake my head and deny it. That afternoon, Sarah called for another meeting to review the previous month's performance. Toward the end, she singled me out. "Last month, Anna's performance was lacking. I hope you can focus on your work this month and show some improvement." After being called out 2 days in a row, it was clear to everyone that Sarah was deliberately targeting me, especially since it all started after our business trip. After work, my colleagues gathered around me, trying to comfort me. One of them suddenly grabbed my hand. "I figured it out. You must have spoken to Mr. Tomas during the trip, right?" I couldn't help but laugh internally. If only they knew, I'm not just talking to Tomas, I sleep with him every night because he's my husband. But seeing how convinced they were, I decided to stick with the simple explanation. "Last time, I just ran into Mr. Tomas at the restaurant downstairs and greeted him. We exchanged a few words, that's all," I explained. But apparently, even that was enough for Sarah to throw shade at me for 3 days straight. If merely saying hello to him was enough to provoke her, I wondered how she would react if she knew about the actual relationship between Tomas and me. The days ahead were definitely going to be tough. As expected, it didn't take long before I was summoned to Sarah's office. She went over my report with a fine-tooth comb, pointing out various so-called flaws. Before tossing the papers back at me, "Take this back and redo it. What kind of garbage is this? Don't bring this kind of crap to me again." Seems like Sarah enjoyed wielding her authority, even over the boss's wife. I walked out of her office with the file in hand, and as soon as I returned to my desk, my coworkers gathered around with concern. "If even your proposal was rejected, then what hope do the rest of us have?" one of them lamented. I patted her shoulder lightly and chuckled. "Don't worry. Yours will be just fine." Because deep down, I knew it was only my proposal that got shot down. Sure enough, later that afternoon, Sarah sent a message in the department group chat, "I've reviewed all the proposals. They're excellent, except for Anna's, which was unacceptable. Please revise it and resubmit it to my office by tomorrow morning." Lily, reading the message, let out a gasp. "Oh no, Anna, you've fallen into the office death trap. You're officially being targeted by the boss." I didn't respond, choosing instead to silently revise my report. But Lily, ever the gossip, turned to the others. Isn't Mr. Tomas already married? So why is Sarah still clinging to him? She wondered aloud. Goodness, Sarah's so full of herself. Another colleague chimed in. She acts like she's this modern independent woman. I once heard her drunkenly claim that Mr. Tomas's wife must be some spoiled canary who doesn't deserve him, and that only someone like her, a self-sufficient woman, could be a match for him. But we've never actually seen Mr. Tomas's wife, someone else pointed out. Lily glanced around to make sure no one was eavesdropping, then whispered conspiratorially, actually. Mr. Tomas's wife is working right here in this company. My heart skipped a beat, and I leaned in closer, my curiosity piqued. Could it be that they were on to me? I swear I heard it from Mr. Tomas's assistant. He accidentally let it slip, Lily added. A chorus of gasps filled the room. Wow, the boss's wife has been right under our noses this whole time. Lily suddenly turned to me with a scrutinizing look. Anna. Let me ask you something. My palms were sweating, and I swallowed nervously. What is it? Do you know who Mr. Tomas's wife is? I shook my head quickly. Lily sighed in disappointment. I thought since he even brought you on the business trip, you might know. How boring, she muttered. I let out a silent sigh of relief and turned back to my computer to continue revising my report. Then, Lily's next sentence dropped like a bomb, freezing the entire room. Have you guys ever considered, what if it's Sarah? Lily's analysis was surprisingly thorough. Tomas is married, and the boss's wife works right here in the company. No wonder the company benefits are so good. Have you noticed how Sarah always acts so arrogantly? Anyone who gets too close to Tomas gets her targeted. I wouldn't rule out the possibility that she's the wife. I had to admit, even I, the person involved, wanted to applaud her for such a keen observation. In just a week, this gossip spread like wildfire, and soon it became the main topic of conversation during lunch breaks all around the company. As for Lily, the source of the rumor, she was now trembling with fear. What if Tomas finds out? Will I get fired? She asked, her voice shaky. I could only reassure her that she wouldn't. After all, Tomas was so focused on his work during the day that he wouldn't care about these office rumors. Once the workday ended, he completely ignored company affairs. There was no way he'd hear about this gossip. But I think Sarah's already heard about it, Lily said, her voice dropping lower. Don't you think she's been acting weird lately? She's been carrying around even more expensive bags, and sometimes takes her lunch out. When I ask where she's going to eat, she just looks shy and doesn't answer. I had no idea about this. Lately, Sarah had been focusing all her attention on targeting me. Between all the endless revisions on my proposals, I didn't have the time or energy to keep an eye on her movements. I thought this was just idle speculation, but a week later, another bombshell dropped. Jerry, the marketing manager, came to find Sarah. The two of them had an argument in her office with the door wide open, and the whole office could hear their heated exchange. It was clearly about budget issues, with Jerry having a solid point. Then, Sarah did something that made everything clear. With a playful toss of her hair, she said with a smirk, "All right. This is my fault. I'll talk to Tomas about the budget tonight." Everyone in the office knew that Tomas couldn't be contacted after work hours. Sarah's words all but confirmed her marriage to him. Jerry's face turned pale, and after a quick apology, he slunk away. As Sarah walked out of her office, she shot a parting glare at me. Please don't mention today's incident to anyone. I prefer to keep things low-key, she said with a smile. I was in disbelief. What was this, some kind of performance? Later that night, as I was still thinking about the situation, Tomas, clearly upset, grabbed my face in frustration. It's our couple time. What are you thinking about? You're ignoring me, he complained. I struggled to push him off, quickly changing the subject. Aren't you still looking at the partnership proposal? I heard the assistant said you need to review the documents soon. Forget it, we can do it tomorrow. I work fast, it'll be fine, Tomas insisted, leaning in closer. But just as he said that, my phone rang. Both of us froze for a moment, staring at the phone as it rang non-stop. Tomas clenched his teeth in annoyance. I answered the call, and the furious voice of Sarah immediately blared from the other end. Look at this proposal you sent me. I can't understand a word of it. Rework it and have it on my desk before work tomorrow, or I'll deduct your pay. Tomas's temper flared, and without hesitation, he snatched the phone from my hand. If you don't understand the proposal, then learn something. Don't bother Sarah after work hours. Just leave her alone. Tomas snapped before slamming the phone down. Before I could process what had just happened, Tomas threw my phone on the floor with a frustrated sigh, leaving me standing there, dumbfounded. Oh no, how was I going to face Sarah tomorrow? 9 the next day, I arrived at work feeling completely drained. As soon as I sat at my desk, I could barely keep my eyes open, until a stack of documents was suddenly thrown in front of me. Sarah was standing there, her face dark and furious. Get all these done. If you can't finish them, stay late. I want them all tomorrow, she ordered coldly. This stack was nearly a week's worth of work, and even Zach couldn't hold back. Miss Sarah, this is too much. Is it urgent? If so, I can have others stop their work to help get this done, he suggested. Sarah turned sharply to glare at him. How could she not finish this? She has time to seduce other people's husbands, doesn't she? I'm sure she has plenty of time for work. The room went completely still, and everyone sucked in a sharp breath. Isn't there some misunderstanding? Anna's not like that. Lily forced a nervous laugh and nudged me to explain myself. I stood up, my patience wearing thin. I locked eyes with Sarah. What, is Tomas your husband? Is that why you're so concerned about what I'm doing? The gasps grew louder, and I knew, without a doubt, that for the next week, I would be the hottest topic in the company. You admit it. You seduced Mr. Tomas and climbed into his bed. Sarah screamed, almost as if she had lost her mind. She lunged toward me, and I had to quickly step back. Several people rushed to hold her back. Her usual polished appearance was gone, her clothes were disheveled, and her eyes were filled with hatred as she glared at me. With the scene getting more chaotic by the second, I finally decided to call Tomas. Hey, babe. Miss me? I said into the phone, keeping my tone casual. Tomas's deep voice immediately came through the speaker. Since I was on speakerphone, everyone in the room could hear clearly. Sarah froze in place, her body going rigid. Lily's eyes grew wide as she stared at me. So, you're the boss's wife? She whispered in shock. I smiled lightly, thinking to myself that it would be hard to stay low-key at the office after this. In 2 minutes, Tomas arrived with his assistant, looking serious. Sarah's pupils shook, and she muttered to herself, this can't be happening. No way. Tomas walked toward me, taking my hand and lowering his voice. What happened? Is someone bullying you? I briefly explained the situation, and Tomas's frown deepened. He pulled me closer, his arm around my shoulders as he looked at the others in the room. Yes, Anna and I are married. We've kept it quiet because we wanted her to be able to work without distractions. As for Sarah, he trailed off, glancing at Sarah, whose eyes were red and who was still shaking her head, clearly in denial. Let's talk in my office, Tomas said, pulling me with him. I could either stay and face a barrage of questions or endure the suffocating silence that was sure to follow. I chose to retreat for now. In Tomas's office, he personally made me a cup of milk, his way of comforting me. Sarah remained standing nearby, glaring at me with a look of pure venom. Before long, the HR director arrived with some people in tow. We need to discuss Sarah's departure, the HR director said. Are you firing me? Sarah's eyes went wide as she pointed at me. Just because of her? I've worked here for so long, and you're firing me for her? Tomas stepped in front of me, blocking her view. She's my wife. I won't let anyone bully her. Sarah was finally escorted out by the HR director, her angry shouts echoing down the hall. Tomas leaned against me. His voice playful but a little hurt. You didn't tell me about all this. You don't trust me, do you? I'm so sad. I sighed, looking up at him. No, it's not that. I just didn't want to make things harder for you. He grinned, pulling me closer. It's not hard at all. I only need you, darling. The company's yours. You can do whatever you want. Tomas continued to tease me, clearly enjoying the moment. Though I couldn't help but feel like he was trying to play the role of the wounded party to get my sympathy. Just then, the office door swung open, and the HR director, looking pale, rushed in holding a stack of papers. I'm sorry, Mr. Tomas, I didn't see anything. She stammered. Tomas's cool, detached image was completely shattered. But, true to form, he managed to snap back into his usual aloof self in an instant. Next time. Knock before you come in. What is it? He said, his tone ice cold again. The HR director, visibly trembling, handed him the documents. He kept glancing nervously at me as Tomas signed without a word. Once the papers were signed, the HR director quickly left the office, practically running. Sarah had been fired. I stayed home for 2 days to avoid the office and finally went back to work. The people in the office greeted me just like usual. As if nothing had changed. The year-end meeting was fast approaching, and once again, we were seated in order of the first letter of our names. Lily looked at the message from the admin team and sighed softly. I just found out that it's all Tomas's doing. Even if your name doesn't start with A, the admin will find a way to get you a seat in the front row. I blushed and stayed silent. Why not just give you your own seat in the front? Reserved for the boss's wife? She teased. I couldn't help but think that Lily really knew how to read her bosses. After all, Tomas had thought about doing exactly that a while back. At the meeting, Tomas gave his usual speech about the company's future, but his eyes would occasionally flicker to me. After he finished speaking, he actually sat down next to me. I was wondering why there was still an empty seat beside me. But as soon as the meeting ended and everyone started to leave, I suddenly felt dizzy. Before I could react, I blacked out and fell forward. Anna. Babe. I heard voices calling out as I fainted, but by the time I opened my eyes again, I found myself in a hospital bed. Tomas was sitting beside me, peeling fruit for me. What happened? Am I seriously sick? I asked, my mind racing with worry. Babe, Tomas said, his voice filled with excitement. You're pregnant. He took my hand, unable to hide his joy. The doctor says you're over a month along, but you have low blood sugar, so you need to be more careful. I couldn't believe it. I was pregnant, with Tomas's child. That afternoon, I was ready to go home, but before I left, Tomas took it upon himself to copy all the pregnancy care instructions from the hospital wall. There he was, a man in a sharp suit. Furiously jotting down notes with a pen and notebook, drawing the attention of everyone around us. Why don't you just take a picture and read it later at home? I joked. That won't do. A good memory is no match for a bad pen, he replied seriously. I couldn't help but roll my eyes. Ever since I got pregnant, Tomas insisted that I stay home and not return to work. He wouldn't let me lift a finger around the house. Even scolding me if I tried to boil water. Your job right now is to rest. If you need anything, just let me know, he said, as he studied nutrition guides. I chuckled at how seriously he was taking it. But my limbs are practically useless now. Do you think you can handle it all? I teased. Of course I can, he replied confidently, pulling out yet another book. This one was titled Maternal and Infant Care, and next to it was a second one. Mood Regulation for Pregnant Women. Over the 7 months of my pregnancy, several close colleagues visited to check on me. They couldn't help but notice how Tomas was practically running around taking care of everything for me. Lily gave me a thumbs up. "We all want to know, how do you manage to keep Tomas in line?" she asked. I smiled and shrugged. "It's not me keeping Tomas in line. He's just completely in love. Besides, isn't pampering, caring for, and listening to your wife what a good husband is supposed to do?" Everyone laughed, but deep down, I couldn't help but feel incredibly lucky.